Hello and welcome again to a new chapter number 16 of Azure Support Academy. In this new session, we are going to talk about the best practice of BCP with Azure SQL Database. As you probably know, we have a different method to export and import data from to SQL Azure. One of them is to use BCP or bulk copy process. Basically consists in to export the data using BCP with a modifier out and import the data using BCP with modifier in the command line in. BCP has some advantage importing the data when you are adding some data. For example, the file generated will be compressed. And when you add some data using the import process, you could configure how many rows, after how many rows this data will be committed to the database, reducing the space usage and transaction log and 10db. So the agenda we are going to talk about several points that we need to be aware of. One of them is the configuration. We are going to show you how to check the compatibility with your SQL database. Another one will be prevention, that we are going to talk about how to avoid to fill transaction log and or to prevent the full 10db. And also we are going to talk some best practice about how to import the data when you have some large files. Another point will be the execution. So we are going to talk how to speed the process. And also we are going to show you an example about how to automate this process using PowerShell, using BCP. Finally, we are going to talk about use BCP or try to use the file generated by Backpack using BCP to import the data. So my name is Jose Manuel Jurado. I am Support Escalation Engineer in SQL Azure, a Site Master expert in this technology and speaker in some events. So let's try to review the compatibility with using data aggregation system. So first of all, we need to review the compatibility of our SQL databases. So right now I have one SQL instance here with just only one database. I'm going to show you a couple of minutes. So I have three databases: BCP demo, DMs demo, and JM this_count. And we are going to show you how to validate this, for example, using BCP DMs demo to validate the compatibility with SQL Azure. I'm going to open here Data Aggregation System. I click Open, I click a new project, let's say Assessment. Let's try to, okay, SQL Test, SQL Test 1. The server type will be SQL Server and target server type will be Azure SQL Database. Click Create, click Next. I'm going to review my local host with Trust Server Certificate. I could choose several more than one databases, but unfortunately in the migration process we cannot choose more than one. Let's click here, add here, install assessment. And in a couple of minutes we are going to have a report about the compatibility issues, if we have any of them using SQL. So right now we don't have any problem, so we could continue working, create the BCP files and import the data in our SQL database. So before importing the data, I would like to show you what is the best practice, what is the prevention, because when we add in some large file or a lot of rows, we need to review, we need to monitor the 10 dB space. It's very important to know that each database tier that we have in SQL Azure will be different size in 10 dB. Okay, so unfortunately, we cannot change the size of this database, but if you want to have more, the option that you have is to increase or to scale up the database to next database tier. It's the most impacting the database, the DB, because in SQL Azure, when you create one database, we have enabled React committed snapshot isolation by default. So, for example, using Backpack, the process that following this process, Backpack, first disable indexes and constraints, import the data, and activate the indexes as constraint. With this process, will be most faster, and also you are going to avoid to have very fragmented indexes. And the constraints, it's a process that you're adding a lot of rows. If you disable the constraints, in this process, when you add in some rows, we are going to avoid to check for every row the integrity, referential integrity, not so. With this process, you are saving time in this process. For this Backpack process, we are going to show you an example using BCP in this similar way. It's very important to update the statistics when you finish the process, because Backpack and BCP it's not will not update the statistics. So when you rebuild the indexes, you are going to have updated the statistics related with indexes, but not if you create the user statistics or a SQL or other statistics that SQL could create when you run some selected statements. We are going to show you an example in the next demo about how to monitor the 10 dB usage. You could download from this script. Other things is the transaction log. It's again, we have the same statement, the same situation when we have with 10db. It's performance database tier. You will have different transaction log size. For maintain the reliability in SQL Azure, that is not possible to modify the recovery model. So you are going to have full all the time. Also, the most impacting thing that we have in transaction log, we have two. One of them is very important to avoid the long running transactions, because the long run transaction could fill the 10 dB transaction log. Okay, and also if you try to kill the session or to finish the process, etc. For example, if you are doing this long run transaction for 40 minutes, 15 minutes, if you kill the process or finish the process without complete before finishing this process, this rollback process will take the same time that could have the long run transaction or had the long run transaction previously. For this reason, we are going to show you an example using the parameter -v that prevent to this situation, because it's for one specific number of rows, this transaction will be committed against the database. Also, we are going to show you in the next demo about how to use the following scripts to monitor the transaction log with a special script. And yes, finally, just only one thing more. It's about we are doing a backup process from the transaction log for every 5 minutes. And explained before, it's very important to disable indexes when you are using BCP. Let me show you an example in the text demo. Other option that we have is how in the execution process is speed up the import process. So what is the option that we could have to speed up the import process? The first is to use the maximum performance level. For example, in my case, we are going to show you using P15. It's a maximum capacity. When I finish my process, I'm going to scale down this database to S3, S2, depending on the desired database tier. As mentioned before, it's very important to disable indexes and constraints in order to avoid the fragmentation, high fragmentation, and the process to verify the integrity, referential integrity. If you're using text column or text field in your database, for example, increase the packet size in the process of BCP will save you some time about the transmission of the data. Also, it's very important to run your virtual machine, if could possible, to run the process using one virtual machine running in Azure, because if you're using your office or the bandwidth, could be different, and the process will take more time because they need to transmit the data to the data center of SQL. Also, it's very important that the virtual machine that you have in Azure will be in the same data center that we have the SQL Server Azure server. It's very important to disable the auto statistics, because when you finish one BCP process or backpack process, the importing the data using backpack, if SQL Server detects that you have the 20% of about the total number of rows that you have in your table, SQL Server will try to update the statistics that is related with the select that you are doing. Okay, so in this case, SQL will be updated. So for the reason, the process will take more time, and also the statistic will be just only using the more or less an example, more or less 10-15% of the number of rows. So the distribution of the data will not the best distribution data for the statistics. So my suggestion is disable the statistics, update the statistics after any BCP process, any backpack process, and enable again the statistics, just only to avoid some problems about execution plans. Also, it's very important to use the partition table indexes. It's very important because if you have several partition tables, you're going to you're going to have less impact when you add more data. Other things that we found is when you are using indexed views. For example, I remember one case that one customer has around 20 indexed views for a alarms table. In this case, when you add data using BCP, also the indexed view needs to be updated. So what that's mean? That means that at the moment that you are inserting the data, you need to update the indexed view, creating that the transaction load is 100%, the data is 100%. So my suggestion is add the data, drop the indexed view, add the data, and recreate when this process finished. Other things, it's very important. As you know, in SQL Azure, we are not able to connect to another database when we have already one connection. But you could use external tables to distribute historical data in order to have duplicate data in some databases. And also you could run multiple simultaneous BCP executions. So let me show you one best practice about importing data using BCP. Okay, this is my server. This database is a P15. I'm going to show you one example about how to import data. Okay, so the first point, I'm going to open, I'm going to create one normal data tables, and also I'm going to show you some DMVs to monitor the process. So I'm going to create this database, sorry, this table. This table is a normal table, and I'm going to create some indexes. In this case, I'm going to create XML indexes that is supporting SQL. Okay, and I'm going to add some data here using BCP. I'm going to add around 500,000 rows. This is the file that I'm using, file BCP. It's around 7 gigas of data. Okay, right now it's inserting this data in this database. That is the normal process. I'm going to, for example, I'm going to monitor what is the actual size of my transaction log, for example. Let's try to review. You can download this script from our blog. Okay, as you can see, we have around 2 millions, yes, 2 million bytes for each transaction, because we are committed transaction just only every, as I remember well, yes, 100 rows. Also, we could review what is the size of the transaction. So at NDB, most probably we're not using any. Yeah, and we could review also the resource. We are using the average of the log is 27, and we could review the size of our table right now, number of rows. We are using, okay, it's complete normal. So let me show you one other things. I'm going to close this one. Yes, I'm going to modify this number if it could be possible. Okay, I'm going to let me, in order to avoid duplicate data, okay, truncate data, and I'm going to add data. But in this case, I'm going to add data for each. We are going to create one transaction per 10,000 rows. Okay. So right now, as we have the indexes, the process will take some time because we are adding for each process 10,000 rows. So in this case, as you could see right now, the transaction log space usage will be more. It's completely expected. Okay, right now we have 28 million of bytes. Also, most probably we are going to have some space in the 10db because we need to save some data in the objects. It's a bulk insert, and also our transaction log. As you can see, it's around 48, 40, 51, and it's inserted data. So in this case, we are adding the data and update the statistics. Sorry, update the indexes. But in my case, I would like to show you how will be the process when we are not adding data, or when we are not, when we don't have um, the indexes. I'm going to add a new file here. I'm going again the table. I'm going to create indexes. But in this case, I'm going to disable this, all of them. Okay, I'm going to add the data using other table we have without indexes. In this case, I'm going to add, for example, 10,000 also. Okay, the answer it's much faster because if you compare it, we are adding more data more quicker. And also, if we are going to review what is the space of the transaction log, it's less if you compare, and also the space of the TDB is benefit. So in this case, this process will finish more quicker. And also, for example, in the meantime, this process is finishing. Um, Other things that we could use is to use if we want to reduce the size of the table, we could use compression. So in SQL, you could use data compression based on row. And if remember that when you are using data compression, you are going to use more CPU because it needs to be uncompress and compress the data. So remember this process because if your CPU is high, if you compress the data, you are adding you're adding more overhead um, in this compression. So remember this process. So suppose that I'm not going to wait for this process, but I'm going to finish here. This number row right now we have 200,000 rows, and let me show you how to, for example, to enable the indexes. It's just only rebuild. Okay, when you run this process, all indexes will be defragmented, and also the statistics associated with these indexes will be calculated. So just only you need to create a new query and run update statistics with full scan of this table in order to in order to update the statistics. Remember that when you update the statistics using here the table, you are updating all the statistics related to of this table, even with the statistics of the indexes. So my suggestion is to use, in order to use the statistics with full scan, it's to identify what is the statistics after rebuilding indexes. Um, what is the statistics that has been created by the user, or um, will be created by auto-graded or user created. If you just only update the statistics with this auto-graded and user-graded, you are going to save also time in your process because as explained before, when you rebuild indexes, the updated statistics, the statistics will be updated also related with these indexes. Also, I would like to share with you in this presentation um, when you need to, when you are using one table, you could use the BCP, but when you need to transmit or transfer some data or a bunch of tables, you could use this PowerShell script because it's just only in this script, you need to identify the target, the source of the data, the target of the data, and also you need in this process for each, in this case, for example, you could modify this because, or just only identify because in my case, I'm going to transfer all the tables that I have in this database that is a user table ordered by name. But you could modify all this command and select just, for example, a table that is starting by E, by A, by C, uh, or just only to specify in or two or three tables. In this process, the option that we are doing is to export the data using out, okay, this modifier. And after we connect to the target, we run the truncate table and we add or we run the process with modifier in. Okay, you could not truncate the table if you want to have um, uh, without truncate data, just you are adding more data in its BCP process. So I'm going to show you another example I have when using BCP with a backpack file. Okay, so let me share with you other situation. In this case, much probably you know because we discussed the situation previously. When you have one backpack file, this file and the end, this backpack file, it's a zip file. Okay, if you remember the extension, you will be able to see the contents. You are going to see the data, and you are going to see the BCP process. In this case, I have been working in one case that the customer wants to use the BCP file generated by an exporting process of using Backpack. Okay, so in this case, you could use this one because if you have this structure of the table, that you could find this structure using the model XM file. In this model, you're going to have all the structure of the table. I'm going to show you an example about how to import the data using Backpack file. For example, I'm going to add the same. I'm going to run in, but I'm going to use a BCP file 000 BCP BCP. I'm going to modify the contents because when Backpack file generate the file is in native mode, not in text. I'm going to run the process. Okay, and I was able to use the BCP file, this file generated by Backpack to import the data to my table, to this table. So in this case, I have too many files right now. We have 3,600 items. So to do this by hand one by one, it's a boring thing, not? But in this case, I will like to show you an example using PowerShell script. Let me show you that in this process is very simple. I have I think that it's not, yes. In this case, I define the server, the user, the database, and for each file that I have in this table, sorry, in this folder, I'm going to run the BCP file with in modifier in my process. So what that's mean? That's mean that if I execute the process, I'm going to run for each file I have in this folder. In this folder, I'm going to run a new process here. So I'm saving a lot of time because it's just only read the data, read the file, and import the data in SQL. So that's all for this session, number 16. But if you have any question, doubts about this presentation, please send me an email to jmjurado@microsoft.com. And thank you so much for attending this session. We are going to show you another things in the next in a chapter. Thank you so much. Bye.